Hello, fanatics of sorts. It's your friend Ed Fairman, the Wizard of Swords, here with some more magic history. This is about magic methods that were once illegal. Bum, bum, bum. So let's go watch some magic history. Magic methods that were once illegal. A history of deception, disorder, and the law. Not banned because they were dangerous, but because authorities believed they enabled cheating, gambling, and social chaos. Chaos, chaos, chaos. When was magic illegal? And what kind of tricks drew the law's attention? Why did authorities believe magicians were cheating the public? These bans reveal more about the times and society than they do the techniques themselves. Why authorities feared magician. The roots of prohibition. Gambling and fraud. Sleight of hand was primarily seen as a tool to fleece crowds. Games like Three Card Monte blurred the line between entertainment and theft. Religion and fear. Deep anxiety surrounding blasphemy and necromancy. Authorities feared impostor, the mimicking of divine miracles or communication with the dead. And public order. Street shows drew massive, unregulated crowds. Lawmakers associated these gatherings with pickpockets, vagrancy, and potential social unrest. I mean, they weren't wrong. I've had so much social unrest during my street performances. A timeline of prohibition and regulation. 1572, the Vagabonds Act, which we'll talk about a lot later. 1735, the Witchcraft Act, criminalized pretending to practice witchcraft or conjure spirits. The 1824 Vagrancy Act penalized fortune-telling and other impostures in public spaces. The 1800s anti-gambling laws across the U.S. and EU target Three Card Monte and thimble rigging, aka the three-shell game. 1944, our famous medium Helen Duncan persecuted under the ancient 1735 Witchcraft Act. 1951, fraudulent mediums replaced Witchcraft Act and required proof of intent to deceive. And in 2008, oddly enough, the Consumer Protection Act is what now covers us when it comes to illegal magic. Three Card Monte, street theater or swindle. A fast-paced follow the queen challenge. The operator tosses cards face down, seemingly offering an easy win to anyone with sharp eyes. The lawmakers' fear. Classified as a confidence game, authorities knew relied on shills or accomplices and misdirection designed to solely strip travelers of their cash. When performed legally by magicians in an expose of the skill, there are no wagers, no accomplices, and clear disclaimers that you cannot win. On the street or in the theater, you cannot win. How the law treated Three Card Monte. It wasn't just a game, it was viewed as an organized threat to public order and commerce. Three Card Monte could often be seen in places like train stations, state fairs, transit hubs, or anywhere itinerant people tend to gather. This allowed them to find their marks a little more easier and get out of town. The intensity of the ban reflected urbanization anxieties. As cities grew, authorities desperately needed to protect travelers and maintain the image of a safe, orderly metropolis. The hustler was a symbol of the city's chaotic, predatory nature, and he had to be regulated. Spiritualist séances, the promises of proof. In darkened parlors, tables tilted, bells rang untouched, and luminous figures materialized, offering grieving families tangible proof of life after death. The lawmakers more feared that this was an exploitation of grief. Authorities saw mediums not as religious figures, but as frauds preying on the vulnerable, and they were punishable under the Witchcraft Act. While mediums claimed supernatural powers, ethical magicians, like Harry Houdini, treated those with the same effect as theatrical storytelling. No spirits, just psychological illusion. The law shifted away from the devil to fearing the loss of money. It wasn't about whether spirits were real, but whether the transaction was honest. This transition reveals a shift from religious heresy to consumer rights. In 1944, authorities weren't just protecting purses, they were protecting national secrets, D-Day plans. Today, the law views the medium not as a witch, but as a merchant who must deliver the advertised goods. Helen Duncan in 1944 was tried under the Witchcraft Act for knowing about D-Day. She just was lucky, honestly. She just predicted something that was similar enough that the government got scared and literally brought her up on charges to figure out how she knew about this. She just guessed. An ancient art or aid to theft, the cups and balls. The oldest known sleight of hand classic performed in marketplaces for centuries. A mesmerizing game of balls vanishing and appearing under cups. Authorities viewed street jugglers with suspicion, fearing the performance was merely a distraction to allow accomplices to pickpocket the transfixed crowd. I mean, they weren't wrong, but I don't think oftentimes the entertainers were working with the pickpockets, or, as they were known, cutpurses. Isn't that a fun name, cutpurse? Literally somebody who slashed your purse and stole all your stuff while you weren't paying attention. Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't want to do that because that would ruin. It would literally what they call burn the lot, meaning that you couldn't go back to that spot. So no, most likely, I'm guessing the pickpockets attached themselves loosely to the traveling performers and kind of hid on even the edges of that society. But this is just conjecture on my part. While pickpockets existed, the trick itself is a masterclass in psychology and timing. It was a legitimate theatrical display of skill, not inherently criminal. And you can see this every day in Vegas. Right now, there's a professional, quote-unquote, pickpocket working on stage in Vegas, demonstrating the skill. Jugglers, vagrants, and unlicensed performers. Street bans and licenses, regulating the vagabond. All fencers, bear wards, common players shall be taken, adjudged, and deemed rogues, vagabonds, and sturdy beggars. This is from the 1572 Vagabonds Act in the UK, or wasn't the UK then, but I love this term. All fencers, bear wards, common players, and I believe actually it went on to mention jugglers specifically. So fencers, these are literally guys with swords going around doing fencing demonstrations or even appearing in fencing tournaments for cash. Authorities didn't like them because they were going around with swords. Bear wards, these are people who kept bears for bear baiting. Not real trustworthy folks, have live animals, don't treat them well. Yeah, I can see. Common players, actors, itinerant actors who didn't have a theater, your traveling theater companies, are considered the same as bear baiters and guys with swords and pickpockets, which shows you people used to fear These laws were more about controlling public spaces. Authorities feared that gathering crowds halted commerce and provided cover for pickpockets. The ban wasn't on the magic itself, but on the disorder of the gatherings and the idle nature of the profession. We've always been sus, you guys. We've always been sus. Fortune telling. From the parlor to prohibition. Practices like palmistry, tarot, and astrology were presented as guidance or entertainment. Audiences flocked to parlors seeking glimpses of their futures. Authorities viewed these arts as tools for financial exploitation, and laws targeting the crafty sciences to protect citizens from being swindled by these false promises. While some bans remain, and specifically here in Chicago, there is still technically on our law books, as far as I could tell from my research, a law banning psychics in Chicago, but I think it does one of these for entertainment purpose only. You can get away with it, and I've never been into one of these storefront psychic parlors, just because I don't believe in that sort of stuff. So I don't know if there is like a small sign somewhere or they have you sign something or what, but yeah, they still exist here. While some bans remain, most jurisdictions now require for entertainment purpose only disclaimers, framing the practice as performance rather than prophecy. Looking at the medieval bans through the modern lens makes you feel like they're pretty draconian. Laws then were driven by morality, superstition, and order. The state saw itself as the guardian of spiritual truth and public virtue. They did this through strict prohibition. Specific acts like conjuring and fortune-telling were criminalized regardless of their harm, and often labeled as witchcraft or vagrancy. The law feared the unknown and sought to suppress it entirely. In our more modern era of individual liberty and rights, the driving force against these things seems to be focused more on consumer protection. The state protects the wallets and not the souls, viewing magic as a performance art. What do these bans reveal about us as a society? During gambling panics, fear of confidence games peaked during rapid urban growth. As strangers flooded cities, trust became scarce, and authorities feared anyone who could manipulate perception for profit. During times of spiritual insecurity, like times of war, great famine, or mass grief, would drive the public to desperate need for certainty. Laws targeted mediums, not just as frauds, but as exploiters of the national vulnerability and false hope. As we move into the era of civil control, bans were often tools for managing public space. By outlawing street magic, authorities could disperse crowds, regulate markets, and suppress unofficial economies that they couldn't tax. And therein, friends, might lie the rub: taxes. These bans weren't about danger, they were about trust, belief, and control. By studying old prohibitions, it reveals what societies feared most. Not the magic itself, but the terrifying possibility of being fooled. Well, thanks so much for joining me. That's when magic methods were illegal. I hope you enjoyed it, and stick around if you like it. I mean, you can definitely hit like or subscribe or whatever platform this is on. Do the thing. Do the thing! Bye, everybody.